welcome. Thank you for having us here today at this wonderful picnic. I'm glad the weather has cooperated. As a Brit, that's the first thing I always have to comment on. Now, I know as a Pride event, the first thing that I need to ask you about is pronouns. So which pronouns do you use?
Sure, I use she, her, hers pronouns.
Thank you. So let's.
What about yourself?
I'm also she, her. So let's start to learn a little bit more about Pride. So can you tell me and the community what Pride is, please?
Sure. So Pride is a celebration of LGBTQ plus people, and the first Pride was actually a riot in New York City, in Greenwich Village in 1969. So the story is that the Stonewall Inn is a bar that was a space for, at that time, gay and lesbian people and transgender people to meet one another, to have drinks together, and it was routinely raided by police, though, because at the time it was actually illegal to be engaging in any kinds of same-sex behavior, holding hands, kissing, dancing, and it was illegal to be in clothing that the police considered not in alignment with the gender that they thought that you should be. So they actually did things like do gender checks in the bathrooms with people. They would come and raid the bar and arrest people. And on this particular night in 1969 in June, the patrons said, "We've had enough," and they started fighting back. And I really want to mention that two women are credited with kind of spearheading that. It's Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and they're two transgender women of color. So the riot actually went on for 6 days, and they eventually set fire to the building. And after that, a year later, the first Pride parade was celebrated in 1970 on the anniversary of that riot. And that's thought to sort of galvanize the LGBTQ rights movement. It didn't start with that. There was a lot of work being done, but this really galvanized it and kind of pushed it forward. So that's what we're celebrating every June, is that happened.
Okay, yeah. So really a groundbreaking force that drove it forward. That's really interesting. So so I noticed that we have the Pride flag flying outside the town hall, but I also noticed that it's a different flag from what was there last year. Can you explain a little bit about that for us?
Yes. So the flag that's been used for years and years has been the rainbow flag, the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. And then in the past couple years, the community started to understand and realize that it had been excluding black and brown LGBTQ folks. And it still does. Like it's the LGBT community itself does not exist outside of our white supremacist structure. And so, of course, in the community, we still have problems with that racism. We still have problems with not having intersectionality in the work that we do. And so the flag from last year had the brown and black stripes. That's the Philly flag. And that was developed a couple years ago to say, hey, we're being more intentional about this. We want to be more inclusive and more intersectional about making sure we're also fighting for the rights of those that are black and brown and marginalized by racism and not just their status as LGBTQ folks. Now this year, a new flag that has come up, which I think this is the one that we're going to end up using for a while. This one has the transgender color flag in it as well. So this flag now has the light blue, light pink, and white stripes in it, triangle in the corner, and that is to acknowledge that transgender people have been marginalized within the LGBTQ community. Although they're a part of the community, they're in the letters, but they particularly oftentimes will be excluded from spaces, and particularly right now, there's a lot of anti-trans legislation happening in the country. So a lot of the work that the community needs to do is for that part of the community. So again, it's just like acknowledging, saying like, we see you, you have been invisible before over the years, and we're trying to rectify that and be more symbolically inclusive.
So all about inclusion, which is exactly what Diverse Holliston is about. Okay, so that's really interesting. So we're really tying in with Diverse Holliston and supporting your role within the community and supporting LGBTQIA. And that brings me on to my next question, which is the letters have been expanding, LGBTQIA+. So can you talk a little bit about each of those letters and what that means, and have we reached a finite now that we have the plus? Are we all-encompassing now? So maybe you can share a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Sure, and I also think I'll put the disclaimer that, you know, this is my kind of understanding of it, and I'm sure if you asked other people, they may have a different understanding about it, but Yes, the L stands for lesbian, LG, gay, bisexual, transgender. Q is questioning or queer, and we've reclaimed queer. That was a pejorative term back in the day, and people in this, my generation, and I think the next are starting to really embrace that term and say, no, we reclaimed it. Like, this is now what we can call ourselves with pride. LGBTQ. I is intersex. A is ally or asexual. Okay. So LGBTQ plus kind of expands, I think that tends to be the shorthand that most people use, because saying IAA tends to get a little bit like a lot in the mouth.
We trip over the actual letters, and we don't want to lose the meaning or maybe come across as disrespectful, which is sometimes, that can be the reference point, and we want to get it right. This is a conversation that I often have with my daughter is, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm trying to get it right, and if it's changing, then I need to understand that evolution. So this is really helpful to hear from you. So that brings me on, the picnic today is wonderful. How many years have we done this? Has this picnic happened in Holliston?
Oh, this is our second year that we have done it. So Holliston Pride Committee came together first. There was a group of us in February of 2020. Okay. And we said, hey, let's do a Pride Parade in Holliston. And then March happened in 2020, and we said, let's rearrange our goals for this year. Yes. And so we said, let's get a flag up. At least let's try to do that. And so we did that the first year, and that was amazing. We got the very first Pride flag up on Town Hall. Okay. And now that's happening in perpetuity. Last year, what we could manage was a picnic. We said we're going to do a picnic, and then there was actually an event also at Aesop Staples, the bookstore in town, which is a wonderful ally to the LGBTQ community. They have lots of authors and events, and they did one last year. This year it ended up not happening, but we still maintained the picnic, which I think is very important as a space for people in our town to know that they're welcome to come together and kind of show up as they are, and that we want to see them in that space and to see one another. Because if you're parents now, like, you're not really out being able to find your people as easily as you could when you were younger. When you were younger, if you were trying to go to the bars, or if you were part of an organization in college when you were a young person, that was one thing. But like finding other queer people and families is not as easy. Yeah. And sometimes people just kind of want to blend in, and they don't really want to be like wearing their rainbows all the time like I do. Yes. Which is totally fine. And then it's sort of hard to know where you've got that commonality. So I think that this is an event where I see people being able to come and say like, oh wow, look around. Like, I am not alone. I am not estranged. I'm unique and wonderful. People here celebrate me, especially for the young people. Because that can be a pretty hard space to be when you're first figuring yourself out. Exactly.
So that actually brings me on to how Holliston can work to support the community. This is fantastic. You said that you have an agreement now with the town hall about the flag and the visibility. What else can Holliston and the people within the community do to support the LGBTQ?
Yeah, I would love to hear more from the people in the town so that we can answer those questions better. I have a little bit of some ideas about what I think, but I'm hoping that today people will fill out the paperwork I put out on the table so that I can hear from them. I think other ways to support people in the community are to educate yourselves. I have tons of books and resources over there. I think we all have a lot to learn. Even those of us in the community have things to learn. Learn about what pronouns are, learn about respecting them and asking about them in the beginning. I love that you did that. I started doing that with the kids I coach, and a lot of parents were like, wait, why would you do that? They're like 5 or 6. I'm like, yeah, but we all have pronouns. Like, we all have them. Yes. And if there is a child there who's kind of wondering or questioning, and the fact that I asked gives them a chance to, even if they're not going to say it, be like, oh, well, this coach is actually thinking about it in a different way. So that's kind of cool. So maybe, down the line, I'll be more comfortable to say that
and loud. Also, I think that's the way of the world now. That's the way that the changes are showing themselves. They're more evident in social situations, in business situations, and I think if you ask the question up front, then it avoids a lot of awkwardness, potential awkwardness later down the line.
Yes, if we all just say it, if it's like the norm,
it becomes
then it's
normalized.
Not strange for someone to say, and my pronouns are, because the subtext meaning you may not know that by my presentation or what you judge me to be. Exactly. So it's really takes a lot of stress away. I would add a couple other things to what I had said. Put up flags at your house, wear the clothes, demonstrate your support visibly. It like really does make people feel good when they see that kind of solidarity being put out there.
Yes.
And I want the schools to teach our history. The kids should be learning about what Stonewall was, and then what happened after that, and how we got to the point we are today, and where we're currently at today. I think is hugely important, so that they can see themselves in that curriculum, but also that even if they're not part of the community, that the community has done some stuff that really matters.
Yes.
So it's inclusive of all kinds of.
Wonderful.
All the history that we try to be inclusive of.
So I've seen lots of people coming through as we've been chatting, which is great. The picnic is here until 5. What should people do if they want to find out more information and they can't make it here today? How can people reach out to you?
We have a Diverse Holliston has a Facebook page, and so does Holliston. It's Holly Pride on Facebook. You can reach out to me personally. I can give my email address. I'm totally fine with that. It's Barb, B-A-R-B, .Fritz, F-R-I-T-T-S, @gmail.com. So they can email me. I will include them on our listserv, and I'll ask them if they want to help volunteer. Could certainly always use help with events like this. And down the line with any other efforts and initiatives that we're trying to do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for the efforts that you're putting in for our community. And I look forward to enjoying the picnic with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anne, for being here.
Lovely to have you.
Yes, lovely to have you as well.
So can you just tell us what Holliston Pride means to you, or what Pride means to you generally?
Oh, sure. So we just moved to Holliston about a year ago, and we're really excited that Holliston has these types of events, and just happy to be in such a welcoming community, not only for me, but also for kiddos.
Yeah. Okay, so here I am with another family at the Holliston Pride picnic, Sarah and Lily. I wonder if you could share with us what Pride means to you both.
You want me to start? I think we just love that it represents inclusivity and includes everybody, and we want to really be supportive of everybody regardless of gender, sexuality, and
give them their choices.
Exactly.
Yes, let people make their own choices. And how important do you think it is to have these events in Holliston?
Do you think it's pretty important?
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and I think it's really important for people who are young to experience it so that they can really see that there's, inclusiveness and acceptance in all of our different communities.
Yes, and to take that forward in new generations, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with HCAT.
Thank you.
Here I am meeting some more friends at the Holliston Pride picnic. Welcome. Winslow, if you could tell us how you feel about being at this Holliston Pride picnic.
It's super fun, and I just want everyone also to come, if that's possible.
Wonderful. I totally agree. Thank you, Winslow.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Oh, it is so wonderful for us to be out. We moved to Holliston right before the pandemic started, so this is really our first experience with getting to really kind of meet the wider community, and it is such a delight to see so many folks come out to have such an inclusive, family-friendly event, and this gorgeous spot. We've never been to Pleasure Point, so we are having a wonderful
day. It really is
day.
a beautiful
We're planning
spot.
on coming back.
Oh, we're definitely going to come back.
Absolutely, yes. That's
And
the
probably
thing.
maybe even today.
And maybe even today. It's true. I mean, why
Yes.
resist the call of a Pride picnic
Especially-
at Pleasure Point?
Yes.
Okay.
Too many peas.
Too many peas.
And I wonder if you could tell me how important you think it is for the Holliston community to support Pride and to host events like this.
What do you think? Do you think it's important?
Definitely, since I feel like people don't really understand it as much as they should.
That's a very good point, Winslow. Well raised.
Yeah, well, we're a two-mom family, so it's important to us that Hollistonians see that there are families that are of sort of
Wonderful.
all identities that live here, and that inclusiveness benefits all of us, and being just welcoming in general is just really good. It's like just seeing the joy and pleasure and happiness of everyone running around, and we're trying to replicate it every day.
I'm definitely around to see.
Yeah, to look around and see.
We are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for talking to me. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I wanted to say a few words today. I'm so excited everyone is here. Thank you for coming out today, whether figuratively or literally, to celebrate Pride. It makes my heart so happy to see everyone supporting an event like this. Some people might think that we need to stop fighting for the rights of LGBTQ plus people after same-sex marriage became federally recognized, but I think you all know that that is far from true. All around the country, we have seen anti-transgender bills being introduced. These bills seek to ban transgender kids from sports, and worse, prohibit them from receiving life-saving medical treatment. I repeat, transgender people are some of the most at-risk people for suicide, and so having access to gender-affirming medical care literally saves lives. There is now the infamous Don't Say Gay law in Florida, and LGBTQ plus people still do not have federal legislation that protects us from discrimination in key areas of life, including employment, housing, credit, education, public spaces and services, federally funded programs, and jury service. The fact that so many of you are here today, either out and proud or showing your allyship, is evidence that we have made many gains in the movement for LGBTQ plus rights. It is a different world for kids today. More of them are aware of gender and sexual orientation diversity from much younger ages than we saw in my generation. My kids do not understand why people were arrested at the Stonewall riots. The idea that it would be criminalized to be gay is unfathomable to them. Kids today are growing to have flexibility of mind that means they have no problems using they/them pronouns or respecting a friend's chosen name. They will be the next leaders in this movement, and the future is bright. But they need our support now, because we as adults can donate and we can vote. We've got to protect this generation and the next by putting our resources to use. If you are here today, it means you care about this community. So I encourage you to consider how you can make a contribution to this fight for equality. Here are some ideas. Join up locally with Diverse Holliston or Holly Pride Committee and see how you can help us. Donate to the Human Rights Campaign and be a community sponsor to push Congress to make the Equality Act into law. This would grant LGBTQ plus people those very protections against discrimination that we currently do not have. Fill your home with library books that have LGBTQ plus characters. Add your pronouns to your email signature and your Zoom name. Encourage your kids' teachers to celebrate Pride Month in the classroom and to teach LGBTQ plus history. Let the principals and school committee know how much this means to you by sending emails to administrators and speaking up at the school committee meetings. Thank you again for being here today. Everyone, please enjoy the weather and check out any number of additional Pride events around the state this month. Please check out the resource table, sign your name to any of the number of things, ways to volunteer, the petition on gender inclusive sports that I created, and have a happy Pride and a great month of June. Thank you.